Death I partake, my ambition I forsake, all my will I surrender to thee. Born to die upon Calvary, Jesus suffered my sin to forgive. Born to die upon Calvary, he was wounded that I might live. Wonderful sing this evening. You may be dismissed to your connection classes.
Boy, tonight couldn't have started off any better in comparison to what we're talking about tonight. Whew. We're back in Luke chapter 10, where we've been for the last 6 weeks. So here's how my Wednesday evening has started. I forgot to hit the live stream button, even though I swear I did. And I looked down and realized all of a sudden my wife texted me. She's home not feeling well, and it's like, where's the live stream? And I'm like, oops. Apparently it wasn't going. Now it is. And secondly, and this is the really bad one, because this is going to determine an awful lot for the next 40 minutes. About 4 minutes before church started, I realized I don't know where my notes are. My notes are usually in this pocket or this pocket, and I'm pretty sure that means they're sitting on my desk at home, because they're not here and they're not there, and they're not here and they're not there, so they must be back there. So you're going to find out just how well I studied this week, because I don't have my notes to help me out a little bit, but that is okay. So with it being when it is, I figured it was worth us spending a little bit of time talking about the holiday season. And of course, you can't get anything normal from me, and so we will read a Christmas story tonight that is very, very, very atypical. And oops, somebody got away, didn't they? All right. Anyways. And I got thinking about, the holiday season. It's interesting. We spend this time of year, and I don't know about you. Do you guys have a hard time getting in the holiday spirit living in Florida? I know we have several. New York, right? Connecticut? Anybody else from up north? Spent a lot of time up north. Fellow Michigander, same area. All right. In a way, same church from back in the day. Okay. I don't know about you. I miss cold. When I say cold, I don't mean Florida cold. Florida cold is, oh my goodness, it's 70 degrees and less outside. So therefore, I have to bundle up and stay home because, I might, my car might slide on the ice or something here in Florida. Not that kind of cold, but I miss cold. I don't miss snow. I will be honest with you, I don't miss snow, but I do miss cold. And to me, it's always made Christmas time kind of difficult. It's interesting, for the first 200 years after Christ, there was no celebration of Christ's birth. I got looking, especially because of things you hear this time, the more secular our country especially becomes, the more these things are out there. Well, y'all know December 25th isn't Jesus' birthday. Have you seen a video on that yet? Or have you seen somebody post something on that? Then you guys don't get the same feeds on your Facebook I do. Okay, that's because I'm a heathen. All right. From what I read, there's like several different deities that have their celebration of their birth around this time of the year. And I suppose we could go back and say, if we could go back and blame Emperor Constantine, because if you know your biblical history and you're I'm sorry, not biblical history, but if you know your church history, church was horrifically persecuted for 200 plus years after the death of Christ until Emperor Constantine had a vision in the sky and decided he would become a Christian. And whether he did or not is between him and the Lord, not for me to judge. But unfortunately, because the Roman emperors were pagans, we realized that an awful lot of pagan traditions snuck into the church at Rome at that time, which became the epicenter for not necessarily the best Christianity at that point. And so they say that, celebrations of Christ's birth go back to about the 4th century, which would have been in the time frame following Constantine. So we take this time, and I think it's great that we take a time to remember Christ's birth. Do you guys agree that that's an important thing to do? If we get hung up on the December 25th date, I don't have the argument with people who disagree with me. You're right. No, I sincerely doubt. There is a 1 in 365 chance that Jesus was born on December 25th. There's also a 1 in 365 chance that we share the same birthday and he was born on January 7th. True? If you want to be technical. All right, can I change the fact that how much was done in the past and this is the date people settled on and this is how it is? But we look around and we got tree and we got mistletoe and, we've got holly and wreaths and all kinds of stuff that we celebrate, yes? But I want you to think about this. Probably some of the most difficult times for Christians is the weeks before Christmas. Because Christmas is full of nothing but stress. What do you guys think about that statement? I had a really cool list, and I can't read it because my notes are at home, from what I could guess. But I can try and remember those 7 things that I had on my list about Christmas time, of things to beware at Christmas time. I will do my best to remember as many of the 7 as I can. May I? Number one thing to beware, batteries are not included. Ask any parent of a really young child what happens if they do not heed that warning on a toy they have just bought. There is a reason. I think Duracell, Everready, Energizer are all in cahoots with the major toy companies because they want to make sure. The sad part is you spend, and my daughter's 25. I'm going to be honest with you. It's been a long time since I worried about buying something that goes, ooh, beep, 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 doo, 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 doo. It makes all kind of noise. You know what I'm saying? But I do remember what happens if you buy a toy without batteries. For at least an hour, they're going to cry because they can't play with it. And then they'll get distracted because they're going to play with the box that it came in. And that's okay, too. At least that's probably what the little one's going to do, right? Play with the box. Number 2, and this is one for all you dads out there. The second beware at Christmas time. Some assembly required. Now, I had a wonderful present delivered to my classroom today. I was so very excited. After 14 years, I got a brand new chair for my desk at school. Brand new. I've had the same chair for 14 years. It was brand new when I got it 14 years ago. Mr. Lynch got it for me when I started because the chair, when we were doing a tour of the school, looked so bad. He went, I can't give you that. He said, I'll make sure you have a new one for the first day. I had a new one on the first day. It was so cool. Still have that chair. I got a brand new one. The box was this long. It was this wide, and it was this tall. And I looked at it, and I went, I don't think a chair fits in that box. Until you slice it open and you realize the word some shouldn't say some. It should say a lot of assembly required. I spent a long time, I say a long time, I probably spent, my wife is listening because you know what she did? She just took a picture of my notes. Well, if you're listening out there again, thank you, love. That'll help. So here, I do have my list. Now I won't feel so bad. Of course, I'm on the wrong page. Let's look at the other page. She took the pictures backwards. That's okay. Now my wife's going to know how I do things. I can tell you right now, I'm sitting there trying to use an Allen wrench. I'm unscrewing, screwing. I'm looking at something going, the instruction manual, the first language, I'm pretty sure was Japanese or Korean. The second language was German. Then there was French, and at the end there was English, and it had very, very little words and an awful lot of pictures. Dads, have you been there? At least 45 minutes to put that chair together. But I'm going to tell you it was really worth it at the end. But in the meantime, I'm looking going, which way does this go? Some assembly required is something that gives us lots of stress. How about this one? When you're out shopping, if you have the mentality that I'll just come back and buy it tomorrow, when you come back tomorrow, it's going to be out of stock on back order and will not arrive in time for the holidays. That is the way it is it not? Number 4, thank you again to my wife who sent me my list. It says that if you are in the checkout line, this one's year round, I just want you to know, but if you are in the checkout line, what's true? You are always in the slowest one. You will always be in the slowest checkout line. If you move, guess what happens? The line you just moved out of just went fast and yours just went slow. All right? It's like what happens when you get, do you guys go to Walmart and go to the self-checkout and you get behind, and I'm sorry if this is you, but I'm going to complain a little bit. When you have the basket with like every single item you need for the next month in the self-checkout and you're sitting there just scanning one at a time, and you're like, really, I got like 4 items. Come on. You know, that's the person I get stuck behind every time. Here's number 5. Number 5, and I got to read this. It's hard to read because these are really small on the phone. This one's really good too. I like this one when I read it. It says, the amount of time it takes you to park is inversely proportional to the amount of time you need to spend in the store. So if you just need to get in and out really quick, you're going to be looking around for a parking spot forever. But if you're going to be there for a while, you'll find one pretty quick. I like that one. Number 6, if you hear a loud crash on Christmas Eve, no, it's not Santa, the tree fell over. You can figure out probably why. All right? Either you didn't put it up well or the dog knocked it over. Or maybe the cat, not really sure. And lastly, if a toilet's going to clog, it's going to do so when you have a really big party going on at your house. And when you have company. That's when it's going to happen. Those are some of the things, just a few that I wrote down, about 7 things to be cautious of as we get to the holiday season. How many of you guys would say, yep, I've had those things happen to me around the holidays? Driven me nuts, yes? When we think about stress, what kind of other things come to mind? I don't know, does it give you a little anxiety? You get a little nervous? You get a little stressed out? For some of you who have some physical ailments to go with it, do you get a little bit more heartburn around the holiday time? A little bit more upset stomach? Does that ulcer start to act up a little bit? You know, that one that you've been trying to nurse around along with some Tums? A little bit more on the headache situation. Those migraines kick in, especially when the grandkids come over and they won't be quiet because somebody got them a drum set for Christmas. All right. Many people get depressed around the holidays. I'll be honest with you. I told you already at the beginning, I'm having trouble getting in the Christmas spirit because I do not do well with warm weather. I have been in Florida more of my life than I was in Michigan. And I still can't get used to Christmas time in Florida because it's just not cold. So every year I pray, just make it cold on Christmas. That's it. Just, you know, I mean, a really cold day for Christmas is what I want. If we get that, I'll be really happy. But a lot of people have other things to be depressed about. Sometimes there's a lot of sad memories that come up. I mean, think about what kind of losses people have experienced in the last 12 months, or even in the last several years, that make holiday times kind of a sad time. And so with depression, sometimes it's not truly depression. Sometimes it is just sadness as you go back and recollect. And then other times people get angry. I can tell you right now, I have seen some really angry people in a store like Walmart. Have you? Especially on the day after Thanksgiving, when there's only 5 TVs on special and there's 50 people trying to grab them. You can see some pretty interesting things happen. There's a lot of different things that can happen. So where does stress usually come from? Where does stress usually come from? I want you to think about Joseph on the first Christmas, can we? And we're not going to go over there because, again, I think, by the way, have you been enjoying pastor's messages on Sunday morning? I've said this often. One of the coolest things I like about the Bible is every time you read it, it can tell you something different. Not because the Bible changes, but because what's going on in your life changes, and something new you pick up or something different speaks to you that you've never seen before. Am I correct? It's the beauty of the Bible. All right, it's transformative to us. But Pastor's done a great job. I think this is really cool. I don't think I've ever heard this in a sermon series about let's focus on the journeys of Jesus at Christmas time when you're looking at all the different movements. I think that's really cool. I've been enjoying it myself. But I got thinking about Joseph and all the stress he must have dealt with on that first Christmas night that we would think about. I don't know about you. Number one thing that causes stress, not enough time, yes? How difficult do you think it was for Joseph when he realized that he had to go back to Bethlehem? And that he had to do it with a wife who was really, really pregnant? I can tell you right now, one time, only once, did I travel with a pregnant wife. My wife was 5 months pregnant. Yeah, 5 months pregnant on a trip to Michigan. We flew to Michigan. And boy, we were stupid because we didn't get a direct flight. We had a layover in Atlanta. Everybody goes, oh, as soon as you say the Orlando airport, everybody knows how much trouble you are in. We had it planned out well. We had an hour-and-a-half layover. It was going to be perfect. We stopped. We got in. Everything was going good. Got off the plane, whatever. They told us where our new gate was. You guys know that Atlanta airport's like a city unto itself. Yes. So we knew we were going to stop and get something to eat. We ate. We rode the tram. We walked very carefully. 5-month pregnant wife. She isn't walking anywhere fast, and I'm not making her. That's okay. We get all the way to the gate, and just about the time we get to the gate, which is when the plane's about to board, because we were taking our time, we found out that the gate just changed. Now, we went from the furthest point on one end of the Atlanta airport to the furthest part on the other end. Guess where the gate changed? Back to where we started. It literally was the gate right next door to the one we arrived in. It is not fun to try and make a pregnant woman run. All right? I can tell you how stressful it was because my fear is we're going to miss the flight because because you have to ride trams and everything inside the airport. It's crazy. It's like Orlando, only worse. I can just think about the amount of stress there was on me. I can only think about what it was like for Joseph. Can you walk any faster? I'm not telling that to a 9-month pregnant woman. How about you? Now, I've only had to go through it once. All right? Some of you, Nathan, 3 times for you. Good, all right. I can tell you right now, that's too many for me. But I can tell you who it's worse for. I can tell you it was worse for your wife. It was worse for my wife. But as the husband, I can imagine how much he was stressed out over time. How about you? I'll give you number 2. That's a long journey. I've driven to Michigan, I don't know how many times over the last 30-plus years of being married. Do you know how much money it costs to drive back to Michigan? I'm sure you know how much money it costs to drive back to New York. Do you guys get back to Connecticut much? You fly. Cheap tickets or you fly first class? Cheap tickets? They're still not cheap though. No, there's no such thing as cheap tickets anymore. I know when we used to drive to Michigan, my wife, and this is all good, we did not usually drive straight through. And that's because I have this problem. If I sit here and go really, really quiet and just sit here for 5 minutes, I promise you, I will fall asleep just sitting here, and I will do it now. All right, when I'm driving and it gets dark, I don't care if it gets dark at 4:30. As soon as it gets dark, I get tired. You know what I'm saying? I got to roll down the window. I got to stick my face out the side, kind of like, your dog or something like that, just, trying to get the wind blowing in my face. Anything, turn the air conditioner up on high. But most of the time, it's a hotel bill, and how much is a hotel bill anymore? Even just for one night while you're just going through. Not to mention the fact you got to stop and eat, right? And you can't stop and eat at McDonald's every time. That's just not good. My first experience with a Chick-fil-A biscuit on a Saturday morning was driving from Michigan. We hit one in Georgia, and my life has never been the same since. I just want you to know that. And I've already determined, because I just said that, I will be stopping at Chick-fil-A tomorrow morning to get a biscuit on my way to school. Just want you to know. Joseph had the same stress as we did, and I just lost my picture. There we go. And that is, he had time, was a source of stress. Money was a source of stress. According to what we know, and Pastor said it, did Joseph have money? I'm sure as he was going, he was wondering, we're going to make it to an inn, but am I going to have enough money to pay for it? How many shekels do I got sitting in there? Do I got just enough to make this work? I wonder if Joseph, when the innkeeper said, we don't have room in the inn, but you know what? You can go sit in the barn if you want. I wonder if Joseph went, oh, thank goodness. Because he was wondering how's he going to pay for it in the first place. I don't know. But I'll give you number 3. Stress comes from emotions. How much emotional stuff happens at the holidays? How much fighting do you do with family members over the holidays. If you have in-laws, or if you have a child who's married, either one, is it a fight who gets who on Christmas? Well, you had Christmas last year. Oh, but wait a second, you got Thanksgiving. I'm supposed to get Christmas and Christmas Eve. It can become a knockdown, drag out in families just to see who gets what special days. Am I correct? Evan, be honest, nobody's watching on there. They can only see me. Anybody been there? Been a little bit stressful? All right, everybody out here is lying. I just want you to know they're all lying because they have. I know it's happened in my family. I mean, fortunately for me, live in Florida, family in Florida, family in Michigan. It's pretty easy to figure out which way we go. So all we know is that there's an awful lot of stress. So the question is what do we do about it? Well, I'm going to take you to a Christmas passage that seems absolutely nothing to do with Christmas. So if you haven't figured it out, we're going back to Luke chapter 10. And we spent the last 5 or 6 weeks looking into Luke chapter 10, talking about the Good Samaritan, correct? We're going to pick up right afterwards. So if you will join me in Luke chapter 10, we're going to be starting in verse 38. All right, you say, how do you know this is a Christmas passage? Shh, I'm pretending it is. It's okay. Okay? All right. Remember, there's a 1 in 365% chance I'm right. Just want you to know that. It says, now as it came to pass as they went, he entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha, received him into her house. I like to pretend, or at least for tonight, I'm going to pretend that Martha said, it's your birthday. You should come over and I'll cook you dinner. That sounds like a very Martha thing to do. Would you agree? From everything you've ever heard about Martha in a church, and I'm sorry I keep doing this. I'm really not checking my messages. I'm just trying to get the notes. They keep going dark on me. From everything we hear about Martha, Martha gets a bad rap here, does she not? Yes or no? Yes. But I want you to see how we started. Let me finish reading, then we'll come back. Anyways, it says in verse 40, it says, But Martha was cumbered about much serving, and came to him and said, Lord, dost thou not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Bid her therefore that she help me. And Jesus answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things. But one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part, which shall not be taken away from her. I want to talk a little bit about Martha and Mary, if I can. And if you don't mind, I'm going to pretend it's Christmas in Martha and Mary's house. I'm going to pretend, I wouldn't say there's a Christmas tree, but you know what? Maybe they got some lights strung up, a few candles lit, and maybe they got a birthday cake or whatever they would use back then in ancient times to celebrate somebody's birthday. Did you notice that it was Martha who went out and asked Jesus to come in? Martha had a good heart. Martha wanted to do something nice for Jesus. We know that, if you read the New Testament, does it really look like Jesus had a lot of friends? Not really. We got the 12, right? Spent an awful lot of time with the 12. Yes? But there's not always a lot of people that were mentioned that he was around a lot. Mary and Martha and Lazarus, from the 2 passages in the Bible that we have, we get a little bit more about them. And we see that there's a special relationship with Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. You say, where's Lazarus? Right here. I don't know. But I know this. Martha wanted to do something nice. And as he's passing through, she's telling him, hey, you know what? Don't go celebrate your birthday alone. Don't go to the Motel 6 or the Motel 8. They can leave a light on for you, but here you'll feel like home. So he says, come on over here. I'm going to take care of you. I want you to come into my house. And it says that she had a sister called Mary, which also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his words. Now, Martha, as we all know, spent a little bit too much time in the kitchen from the sounds of it. Now, when you think about holiday times, how much do you get stressed out about how much you have to do? When family comes over, I was up in Michigan over Thanksgiving, all right? It was my mom, my dad, me, My sister and her husband came over, so 5 people total. Do you know how much food we had to cook? Do you know what time we started cooking food? About 8 o'clock, in goes the bird, right? There's corn. There's 5 of us. My mom wants to cook 17 cans of corn. I'm making that up. That's just a little bit, evangelically speaking. There's green beans. 3 of us don't even like green beans. There's stuffing. There's mashed potatoes. There's gravy. There's bread. There's salad. There's cake. There's pie. All of this for 5 people. I can tell you right now, if you have a family of 5 on a typical night, you cook dinner in 20 minutes for everybody. Am I correct? Does that sound right? But you see, Martha had a mission, and that is I've got to serve. And Martha had a great heart. Did you realize that Jesus doesn't condemn her for what she was doing? Did you ever catch that? Jesus never said she was doing something wrong. Was it a good thing that she was trying to take care of Jesus? Was it a good thing that she was preparing a meal? Was it a good thing that maybe after the meal she was cleaning up? Personally, this is just a personal preference. I don't mind doing dishes after a meal, especially one here at church. You know why? Because when I'm in there, I don't have to talk to anybody. It's easier just to clean dishes. Know what I'm saying? It's something to do. It's something that I'm good at. It's something I've been doing since I was in high school. My first job was a dishwasher. I'm good at washing dishes. And I like to do that. I like to cook. That was my second job. Got to move into the kitchen. I don't mind cooking. That's what I like to do. When I read this story, I identify with Martha. I do not understand the Mary. Because Mary is sitting there listening at the feet of Jesus while Martha's doing all the work. But I know me. I'm the guy who's going to be doing all the work. And I'm not complaining about that. You do understand. I'm saying that that's just a personality thing. Would you agree? Jesus' comment to her, in essence, was this: you're taking too much on yourself. And a lot of what you're taking on right now, all this stress about making sure you had the perfect meal, all this stress about which fork goes on which side of the plate. Don't tell me you don't do that on Christmas dinner too. I got 3 forks. I don't know which one's which. 2 knives and a couple spoons. Some of them are supposed to go on the top. I don't make this stuff up. She's stressing herself out to make sure the house is swept enough, to make sure it looks perfect for Jesus. And Jesus is telling her this when he says, "Thou art careful and troubled about many things." That's why I chose it to put, is what Jesus said that really got me thinking this week. Martha, do you really need all this stress? And is all this stress really what is important right now? What's important? When I was up in Michigan over Thanksgiving, you know what was important? Spending time with my mom and dad. You know what was important when we were sitting around the table? Yes, was the turkey good? My mom makes a killer turkey, I just want you to know. I think it's because she uses like 5 full sticks of butter when she makes one. That probably has something to do with it. And that isn't exaggerated. I do think she uses 5 full sticks of butter. The food was great, but you know what it's about? It's about the fellowship, is it not? It's about spending time with my mom and dad in person. It's about spending time with my sister and her husband in person. Because you know what? This is what my mom said to me the last time I talked to her. She said, that was just the best Thanksgiving in a long time. Okay, in a long time means since last year, because I was up there last year too, and she said the same thing, which was good. But you know why my mom says that? My mom and my dad don't say that because, boy, that was good turkey. Wow, those were some really good instant mashed potatoes. I can whip instant mashed potatoes pretty good. It's not because the canned corn was good. because we had a good time fellowshipping with one another. If we're not careful in the holiday season, we will spend all of our time focusing on all the stresses that don't matter. Now, for the longest time, I've always believed if Mary would have just got up and helped, they could have both. And it's taken me a long time to get to this point to understand, yes, I think Mary should have helped. And I think Mary would have helped after. But sometimes if we're not careful, we get too focused on, but this is what I have to do right now, instead of looking at what really matters. And we stress about this rather than focus on what matters. I don't think Martha had to do it all. She had somebody to help. There is a story I like to tell. All my years working over at the Christian school and at the church across town, when we had youth conferences, there were people. At the height of it, we would have, a couple hundred teenagers from different churches around the area and even from further away that would come in. That's a lot of kids, yes? Do you realize how many different things there are to do to make something like that happen? It takes an awful lot of people behind the scenes. Would you agree with me? You got to have people in the kitchen preparing the lunches and dinners for the kids. You got to have the people out on stage who are leading the singing and doing the preaching. You got to have somebody, you hate to say it, if you've got 200 kids, guess what you're going to have? A clogged toilet. And you got to have somebody who's willing to go plunger. Am I correct on that or no? But I learned that if you're not careful, here's what happens in ministry sometimes. And this is what happens even with us, with our own families. We get a mentality, and I want you to listen to this statement. If you're not working where I'm working, then you must not be working. I want you to think about that for a minute. If you're not working where I'm working, then you must not be working. One year there came a situation where one person working in the kitchen, in a position of some authority, got really upset at this other person because they weren't helping in the kitchen. And I remember he came and talked to me, and he's like, what am I supposed to do, Will? And that's when that thought hit me, and I said, well, obviously, if you're not working where I'm working, then you must not be working. And we laughed about it. I sit here and think sometimes with Martha, she's looking at Mary going, well, you're not working where I'm working, so you're not working. I think Mary was going to come work when it was time, in due season, if you will. Are you following me? Let's get the stress out of the way. You know what? Sometimes the dishes can wait. My dad, when you finish eating, the dishes go in the dishwasher almost instantly. And maybe some of you guys are that way. But I can tell you right now, my wife will yell at me for this one when I get home. There are dishes in the kitchen sink, and that's okay. They don't have to be put in the dishwasher immediately. Sometimes it's okay. Now, granted, she doesn't always put them in the dishwasher right, but don't tell her I said that. I do. And I learned it from my dad. Just saying. Sometimes things can wait. Jesus says to Martha, thou art careful and troubled. You know what he's saying? You're stressed about many things, but it's not the things that matter. Everything Martha was doing was not, she was doing good stuff. I think she was doing something because she loved having Jesus there. She wanted to treat Jesus special, yes? But if you really wanted to treat Jesus special, what should she have been doing? She should have been doing what Mary did. So let me turn this around really quick, because you know who the one person who, okay, yes, we know Jesus wasn't stressed, but guess who wasn't stressed? Mary. You know what Mary had? Mary had joy. I want you to think about that for a minute, because this is what it says in verse 39. It says, and she had a sister called Mary, which sat at Jesus' feet. Oh, and it goes one more step further, and heard his word. You see, Mary understood time will stress you out. But the most important thing at this moment in time is not the dishes, is not the meal, is not the sweeping, is not the laundry. The most important thing at this moment in time right now is to sit quietly in Jesus' feet and listen to what he has to say to me. And I can almost imagine Mary going, why don't you come join me? I got a seat right here for you. There's enough room on the bench for two. But Martha's upset because she's not coming her way. If we're not careful, whether it's at home, whether it's in the ministry here at a church, we get so busy in the ministry doing good things, not saying they're bad. They're things that need to be done. And we get bitter at the people who aren't working where we're working. And we get mad at the person who, well, why are they out there sitting listening to the preacher while I'm sitting in here washing dishes? I choose to wash the dishes, and I do my best to listen at the same time because I'm a multitasker. Know what I'm saying? But you know what? Sometimes dishes can wait. The dishes can wait. They can be done afterwards. The sweeping can be done afterwards. You know, Mary had joy because she was willing to sit at Jesus' feet and she was willing to listen to his word. And I'm going to go with the third one that's not said, but I think it's implied. Are you ready? She was able to enjoy being in Jesus' presence. By the way, who was the happy one of the two? Was it Martha? Doesn't sound like it, does it? Now, was Martha happy doing the work that she did? I'm going to be honest with you. I think she was happy in the kind of work she did. In Catholicism, did you know that Martha is the patron saint of cooks, housekeepers, servants, just about any of those kind of service professions, which makes sense when you see how she's portrayed. I'll bet money she whistled while she worked. And I won't try because I don't whistle well. I think she really enjoyed doing it. But I think for one day she lost focus on what was the most important thing. There's a time to do all that. But today wasn't that time. Today was the time that we needed to sit and listen. Today was the time we needed to enjoy Jesus. I want you to think about this. If she would have realized how short a time Jesus was around, do you think she would have stopped and said, you know what, that can wait? You know, I know when I asked my wife it was okay if I go to Michigan. Do I need my wife's permission to go to Michigan? No. But it's like, hey, are you okay if I go? She said, yeah, absolutely, go see your parents. She said, I would take another day with my dad anytime. You never know how much time you have. If she had known, if Martha had known how little time Jesus had, do you think the story might have been a little different? So when we're sitting here thinking about this, Mary understood that she needed to enjoy being in God's presence, in Jesus' presence, to sit quietly, to listen, and to learn what Jesus had to pass along. So I guess the question is how then do we deal with the holiday stress? Well, I think I can sum it up with just a few things really quick. Number one, set yourself some realistic expectations for the holiday season. If you think you can do it all, you're wrong. There's going to be some things that slip, and you're going to have to let them slip and be okay with it. I'm not, by the way, you do understand, in no way am I advocating that you need to be lazy this holiday season. You do all understand I'm not saying that, correct? That is not my point. My point is let's not get so encumbered by all the Christmas craziness that we don't take time to remember why we celebrate Christmas. Remember I started off by saying the Christmas season is sometimes the worst time for Christians? Because so much craziness happens for one day, and we spend from Thanksgiving till Christmas Eve going nuts. And we take one day, maybe one morning, to be really nuts with the kids, and then maybe think a little bit about what Jesus did if we're lucky. Yeah? Maybe we need to kind of switch that up a little bit in our time. Maybe we need to be a little bit more Mary, then we need to be a little bit more Martha. I'm going to go ahead and say this. Don't let other people steal your joy. There are a bunch of people out there who want to do nothing more than to bring you down this holiday season. And you know who's number one on that list? Is the devil. If something can go wrong, this is a great time to make it go wrong, isn't it? The devil's going to throw problems in your way to steal your joy. The devil's going to put people in your way that are going to try and steal your joy. The devil's going to put money problems in your way to try and steal your joy. You following me? Don't let Satan and don't let somebody else steal your joy as far as what we're doing. And I can tell you one last thing. You want to have a good Christmas season? Make a difference in somebody's life. You know what I mean? I really wish I know exactly how the story ended, because in verse 42, Jesus finishes off by saying, "But one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen the good part, which shall not be taken away from her." Can I finish the story the way I would like to believe it happened? I would like to believe that Mary jumped up, went up and gave her sister a hug and said, "Come sit with me. Just come on." Because I think she needed to make a difference in Martha's life to say, "Come on, come listen, come be a part of what's going on. I'll help you with the dishes later." And that's okay. And I know I'm not speaking biblically, I'm speaking from what I believe, but it's my reality, so let me believe it, okay? Make a difference in somebody's life. Christmas season. We sit here and talk about Jesus is the reason for the season, but if you go out looking, no, it's not. Am I right? The world is telling us that the reason for the season is Santa Claus and you, and how much you can get out of it. Our focus should be on Christ. Our focus should be learning from Christ. Our focus should be understanding that we need to sit at Jesus' feet sometimes and just learn and listen and enjoy being in his presence. Take a day. Listen to a few of the hymns, maybe sung by somebody you know better than, definitely not me. And really, really think about the message of the hymn. Yes? And focus on what Christ did. You know, there's a reason why there's not a lot said about Christmas in the Bible. Because you know what's more important? Is what happened 33 and a half years later, which is death, burial, and resurrection. Because let's be honest, it's not the beginning of the story. It's the end of the story that's so important. It's not the birth. We celebrate the birth. But we celebrate the birth because we know where it's going to lead and what that means for all of us, yes? You can't remember the birth of Christ without at least thinking about the death, burial, and resurrection, and the fact that if it wasn't for that, I don't have eternal life. And I don't know about you, but that's the greatest gift you can have, yes? I would tell you it's okay to be a Martha, but every Martha needs to learn that sometimes you need to be a Mary. Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful for your love to us, lessons that we learn from the Bible, Lord, from these narratives that you give us. Lord, I pray that you'd help us to focus on just be willing to sit down and listen. Listen to what you have for us with that still small voice, Lord. Help us to listen in the craziness that we live in. Bless us as we go on our way. Keep us safe. In Jesus'